Welcome back to another episode of Unbossed, where we are flipping the script on leadership and showcasing what it really looks like to lead with heart and high performance. I'm Staci, and I am so excited about the guests that we have today. Joyce Nichols is a seasoned executive in the advertising and marketing world with decades of experience. She's someone who truly walks the walk when it comes to compassionate leadership. She's also a graduate of our Evo Lead program, and she currently serves as our marketing and communications chair for HeartProfit. Joyce has worked under toxic and transformational leaders, and today we get to hear her insight on how that experience has been for her and how she has chosen to lead as a leader. One thing I want to add on here, if you are a human design person, let me just say that we have two projectors on today's call. So if you're not a human design, just disregard that. But if you are, you'll know exactly what that means, is that we're going to cover some great information. We're going to uncover some deep wisdom that lies within these ladies. So also Gloria is here, my co-host from HPWP. Gloria is amazing and wise with all of this. She has been teaching compassionate leadership for over 30 years. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to you, Gloria, and let you take the first round of questions with Joyce.
I know that you've worked in some high pressure, fast paced environments. And let's just start off with kind of your experience with leadership. What were some of those biggest challenges that you saw leaders face in your experience?
I guess my direct experience and most relevant experience has been in the marketing world. And that has changed, I think, over the last several decades with the holding company sort of structure and smaller agencies sort of being snatched up by larger organizations and being absorbed into these big organizations. And I think historically agency atmospheres were a little more focused on the employees and the clients and doing what was right for the client, understanding what their needs were and really doing everything they could to be supportive of a client. And I think with the holding company dynamic that has been introduced in the last several decades, those smaller organizations get absorbed into a bigger organization where there's a lot of framework, a lot of pressure, a lot of structure around how people are managed and opportunities to progress and all of those things. It's been a tough world to navigate, to be honest, over the last several years for me as a senior leader in an organization. You had some ability to influence what happened with your team, but not all. And so it really put limitations on you as a leader, what you were able to do and achieve. And it really wasn't about the people at all or the value that they were bringing to the organization. It was about what margins do we need to achieve and how do we do that in a way that optimizes profit for the organization. And it's sad because it really has shifted from what I think was a more employee and client focused type of industry into a revenue driving industry.
Cutthroat.
So that's been the toughest thing, I think, for me and several of my peers, in the space. I think we all have seen that dynamic shift, and it's tough to navigate.
Yeah, where the focus becomes all performance and profit versus balancing,
Yeah.
the people side of things and how you get to higher performance through how you lead.
Yeah,
people.
exactly.
Is there a particular story or example that you can give of, it can be compassionate leader, or it can be just the profit at all costs leader. So think about those two kinds of experiences and share your experience with one or both.
I guess the thing that pops in my mind is I worked for, again, a global marketing organization, and I managed a group of marketing operations team members, and we were embedded at a pharmaceutical company. So our client engagement was to manage marketing operations for large international pharmaceutical, and we were embedded in their organization. So being sort of, like not even sort of, but in the client office every single day, working in that environment. So it was a high pressure organization, especially because they were outsourcing their own people into these markets. So our team was taking jobs away from people that they had internal. And so it was a
That's
bit
not
sort
awkward
of,
at all.
it was horrifying, to be honest. It was tough. And that environment was very toxic, not with my team specifically. I managed a group of, I guess, a couple dozen team members, and we worked internationally. So we are working with our internal pharmaceutical client partners across the world that to get execution of marketing campaigns out the door. And the team I sort of worked to sort of isolate or protect from some of the harshness that was coming down. But then I became the person that took a lot of the brunt of, of that. And so the senior leader, I guess, was probably more of a middle management client leader, and I don't think had a ton of experience working to manage that kind of environment, and didn't do it very effectively. So that was a very toxic environment for me personally, because I was the only one that sort of got the brunt of it, because I was trying to protect my team from some of the tough conversations that I had. And thankfully, my agency boss saw that and became sort of my hero in a way. Like, she came in and she understood, like, this is not acceptable. This is not how it should be managed. And I think had some tough conversations on the client side with this leader that was sort of managing things in a toxic way, and ultimately promoted me and moved me out of that engagement into another opportunity where I continued to grow and sort of flourish. So in that environment, I saw both. I saw the toxic command and control leader, who I think was honestly probably frustrated. It was an international organization with tens of thousands of employees, and probably didn't have a lot, of autonomy to make decisions. And so when she would get sort of ridiculed or whatever from leaders, I think she would just automatically push it down without sort of filtering what was going on and what's the best thing to do for the partnership. So, like, I saw both sides of that. I saw the toxic environment, but then I also had a compassionate leader who understood the value that I brought to the organization and worked to address that and get me specifically out of that environment. And I was very thankful.
And yet the environment still didn't change because that other leader was still there. How
It
long have
didn't.
you lived in that world?
I was there on site for about a year and a half,
Probably felt
and it
like
was it was tough. It was tough because I moved to a community that I didn't have a city that I didn't have any personal connections. So the only people that I knew were the people that I either managed or my clients. And in that environment, it's tough because you can't really have a social life at any depth, with people that you manage, like that you're managing, literally managing the team. And then you're also, or my client, so like I didn't have an outlet or support, a lot of support physically in that area. So that was another dynamic I think that was tough.
What kind of toll did that take on you personally?
It was tough. And when I moved to Boston, I decided that I wasn't going to be in that kind of situation again. Like, I was not going to be in a city that I did not have roots, that I did not have connections, like I couldn't make it all about work. And so I did do volunteering, and I signed up for an organization called Boston Cares, and they have organizations across the country where you can go in and identify opportunities that you want to volunteer. You sort of go through a training, and then you can sign up for these opportunities and meet people, like-minded people that, want to give and give back, and met some wonderful friends that way. And so, yeah, it made me get out of my comfort zone, I guess, in the next city to, sort of change that dynamic for myself.
Yeah, that's part of taking care of yourself when
Yeah.
you're going
Yeah.
through, when you're in the midst of that environment, it takes a toll on your mental health, it takes a toll on your physical health. And then not, friends and support system gives you more resilience. It still takes a toll on you. So not having that, made it, I'm sure, a lot worse. And you and I have a similar situation in that instance where I found my friends and I found my community in a new community through volunteerism. So good plug for volunteerism. It really does. It gives you a good
Yeah.
space to meet good people, good-hearted people, because people that are volunteering are good-hearted people. I
Mhm.
love that little plug. And if you're interested in volunteering, we do have opportunities at HeartProfit.
You experienced both, right? So how did your experiences help bring clarity to you on the kind of leader you really wanted to be?
Yeah.
There's who you are naturally, but then we get impacted by the environment and those around us, and sometimes the good and even the bad.
Yeah.
Clear down who we want to be as leaders.
I was really inspired by the boss that I worked. Her name is Lisa, and she was a powerhouse. And I think that I just was so impressed with her ability to be real and authentic and compassionate, while she was also strong and confident. And I think a lot of times women in leadership roles do walk this weird line of being confident and strong and competent and living in that fully and feeling it with this feeling that you don't want to bruise anyone's ego. You don't want to sort of like step in it and cut yourself off for opportunities to continue to grow. So I was inspired by her ability to be both strong and authentic, I guess, at the same time, and be able to to be able to do that in my own way, and advocate for my team, support my team, understand where they're at, tried to always have one-on-one conversations and real conversations, about sort of where they were and how they were feeling about the roles they had. So getting underneath, sort of the surface level, how are things going in your role, but how are things going for you in your life? And how are you feeling about things? And, is there anything I can do to help support you? So I did learn, I feel like from her, how to be both strong and confident, and then also, yeah, be authentic, if that makes sense.
I love that you brought that up because that's where a lot of people get hung up on heart-based leadership and think it's weak. Because in
Yeah.
the past, I was taught by my father, don't be a ball buster, which is what that means, right? Don't speak your
Yeah.
truth if it's going to come down on a guy, right? So we were taught to tame it down. And if you were strong, you were a ball buster. And
Hmm.
so finding your power as a soft, feminine voice in a harsh business world is so incredible. And that's what we're trying to tell people. Look, you can find your power in a soft way. You can still
Hmm.
feel empowered and be empowered and still be soft and connected. And when you do, you can have higher performance. You have higher
Yeah.
performing teams. You have mental well-being with your people. Like it just makes a whole different environment and you don't lose power. And
Yeah.
that's where people think heart-based leadership is not power, and it's true. You need a structure of leadership to allow you to have that soft power. And that is where Heart Profit and the curriculum that Gloria has been teaching for 30 years, that's what we're doing is giving leaders that
Hmm.
foundation so that they can stand in their soft power and guide others. What made you say yes to the Heart Profit program when you decided to sign up and take that program and learn from our curriculum? What made you say yes to that?
So I come at it probably from a different place than other people, but because I am a board member of Heart Profit, I felt that it was important for me to understand the curriculum and the education component,
Mhm.
and my role in the marketing, as executive chair on the marketing communications piece. I felt it was really important to understand what are we trying to teach people and how can I then leverage that to be able to market it in a way that's effective. So I was very curious to understand what the curriculum was and how I could communicate the benefits of that. And I also was just, I feel like we're always learning. So I'm a person that always wants to kind of continue to grow and make a better version of me. I was interested from that perspective. If there were things that I could learn to be a better leader,
Mhm.
bring it on. I want to be able to do that. I want to learn how to do things more effectively.
Was there anything that stood out to you or surprised you about the approach that we're teaching?
I think it reinforced things for me in a way that, sort of in a more structured way, like, oh, the things I was feeling are sort of more validated. It was intuitive. I feel like for me to be a compassionate leader, I try in all my relationships to be authentic. And so, that piece of it felt right and something I've always, strived for. The piece that I think that I found maybe a little surprising is in the interaction with other business leaders. I really loved the cohort learning style and being able to be learning with other business leaders coming from different industries and different backgrounds and different size organizations. And some of the conversations we'd have, were both like regardless of the organization's size or location, there were consistent themes that we're all struggling with the same thing with, making sure that our team members are valued and appreciated. But in some of the smaller organizations, I did notice that there was probably a little lack of structure or rigor around how they did that. So I think the framework around even just having one-on-ones. I remember the conversation about having one-on-one conversations with your team members, and some of the smaller organizations, it was sort of like a light bulb went off, like, oh gosh, I haven't thought about that. And so I remember thinking there's a lot of valuable content that can be gained from the curriculum, and how lucky I was to have had the background that I was, have had to learn things through years as well.
Today's world is challenging for sure. We're seeing higher levels of burnout. Engagement has been low and it's hard to imagine that it could go lower, and it has. Turnover still continues to happen. And so let's talk about this compassionate leadership. For you, how do you see that as the answer to some of these challenges that we're experiencing in the world today?
I think, especially in my industry, or in the marketing industry, I think the dynamic that I talked about earlier, the large sort of organizational holding company, sort of framework that most agencies are now part of. There are very few some of the privately held ones, I think, are actually the ones that are kind of actually achieving some growth today. I do think that the larger organizations need to take a look at what they've done to the industry and really how they are interacting with their clients. Because at the end of the day, agencies are about service. They are about service to their clients. And I think where agency sort of world started from was from that place of wanting to be authentic and provide service and be good to their, team members that they have. I think that it's more about what can the senior leaders learn about where people are today. I think they need to sort of take stock. They are losing really valuable employees. People are walking away. They are looking for other opportunities because the environment no longer suits the needs. I think as the younger generations come into leadership roles, they have different expectations, certainly. And thank God they do. I mean, like I worked with several team members that were probably in the millennial Gen Z sort of category, and they want a better work-life balance. They come to the organization with different expectations. I'm a Gen Xer, and my training was sort of like you said, Staci, you put your head down, you do your work, you work hard, and you think that after years of working hard, you're going to be elevated based on the work that you've done. And sometimes that works to your advantage, sometimes it doesn't. But millennials and Gen Z, they don't have the same, not that they don't work hard, they just are not willing to give up their personal life and their values
Well,
for that. As a leader, is to understand what your team dynamic is and what the team is trying to achieve, and individuals what they're trying to achieve and what they value, and being able to, at minimum, recognize that within them. If you're not able to make autonomous decisions and drive real change for them, at least understanding what they value, and on a personal level be able to reflect that back to them, I do think creates an environment where the team member feels heard, feels understood, feels valued, wants to stay with you as a leader because you've heard them, you see them, you acknowledge what they're doing or what they want, and working on their benefit.
And we do make the world sound dire, right? But the solution, certainly in business and in leadership, is not hard. If you believe in the people that you hire, you trust and you demonstrate value for them, and you demonstrate that trust for them, then you are creating that psychological safety. You are creating an environment where people can be themselves, and where innovation and ideas flow. We've got the solution for sure.
y'all listen to her. She's the one that teaches this curriculum. Y'all need to learn from her. Okay, so this is really, really, really good stuff. Thank you guys both for being here. I want to speak just briefly for just a few minutes on a message to the leaders. There's leaders out there that are going to be listening to this, some leaders are saying, you know what, I want to have compassionate leadership, but every time I do, somebody takes advantage of me and I lose my power, or performance goes down, or they're having a struggle in this wanting to be more compassionate, but not being able to. So you've lived both sides of this. You've experienced both sides of this. What would you say to the leader that feels stuck between, this is what I want to do, but the system I'm in and the company I'm working for isn't necessarily supporting this? What would you say to them?
I believe the best thing you can do for yourself is to listen to that sort of inner knowing or inner calling, sort of don't give up that for the sake of what you perceive to be safety or security. I think that if you are in an organization that you've been empowered to be a leader, and you are not able to make decisions that are beneficial to your team for whatever reason that is, if it's structural, if it's whatever, I think you have to challenge yourself. Am I in the right organization? To be honest, like, I feel like there's sometimes that it becomes comfortable to say, to be earning the paycheck that you get every week, and you feel somewhat satisfied in that. But if you're really not valued enough to be able to make empowered decisions, are you in the right organization for you? I think that's one piece of it. The other piece is, if you are feeling a desire to be a compassionate leader, I would say trust yourself. That's instinct, and I think that's the right way to manage. I do believe that you can have both compassionate leadership and profitability. And I think, honestly, when you do trust your team, empower your team, believe in your team, support your team, the team performance does go up. I do believe that that's true. And I have seen that happen. And I have seen teams perform miracles when given tough circumstances, because they want to support each other and because they don't want to let the other person down. And executive leadership standpoint, I think have faith in your mid-management, senior leaders, to be able to make those empowered decisions and support their teams, because ultimately that results in performance. If you are beating your head against the wall and not able to make decisions that are beneficial to the team, that I think you have to sort of ask yourself if you're in the right place.
Yes.
Because there are so many organizations that do want to allow you to flourish in a way that you can be a compassionate leader. And why get stuck at the organization is not in that same place with you.
And one of the things we're building in HeartProfit is a directory of companies that believe in that way of doing business, that value leaders that want to take initiative and are heart-based. So we're building the directory for you to go find your next job as we speak. What do you want the next generation of leaders to know before they step into positions of power?
I would say, what does the organizational leaders, executive leaders, board need to know about the next generation of leaders? Because they are different. They are different than the Gen Xers, who are probably the predominant leaders in today's, especially big organizations. It's not about putting in 60 hours, 80 hours a week into your work at the expense of your family. I would say that the next gen leaders want and need and will require a better work-life balance. They're not willing to give up everything at the expense of their personal life and good on them for that. Good for them for not sort of following suit, because that is definitely not the way I was brought up in the business world. I was brought up, to put those extra hours in and ultimately trust that executive leaders are going to see your value and promote you, and opportunities, will happen for you. I was lucky in that I was able to realize some of those things, but I've also been in a situation where I sort of, bumped against walls and I wasn't able to, make headway at certain levels to, progress even further. So I do think that executive leadership needs to understand the next gen of leaders are a different animal and get their sort of ducks in a row around it before it's too late, because they are going to lose some really good people if they don't structure their work life to meet the needs of the next gen leaders. I think that they're going to lose some really good people. And unfortunately, I see that happening all the time these days. So
Absolutely.
I feel like it's more what they need to learn. The executives need to learn about the next gen leaders, not the next
Yes.
gen leader. Because I think the next gen leaders already have the right sort of, I don't know if it's intuitive or what it is, but
Mhm.
they already come to the table with I want to be
Compassion.
doing valued work. I want to be valued. I want to have a work-life balance. I want to be treated fairly, and you
And
know,
I want to care for people. Like,
and
why
I want to
are we
care for
treating people
people.
like they're
Yeah,
expendable? They're
yeah,
wired
yeah,
completely different.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good way to say it. They are certainly wired differently.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that
Thank
they
goodness.
are. Yeah.
So if you need more information on how to go about having high performance and compassion at the same time, we're the place, heartprofit.org. You can find out more information there about our organizations. We uncovered a lot of wisdom, a lot of perspective, and a lot of helpful tidbits for the leaders that are out there today. So Joyce, so thank you for taking your
Yeah.
time to be here. I feel like we could have like a whole nother session continuing this conversation. So we're probably going to be inviting you back for another show because this was very valuable. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Gloria,
Appreciate
obviously,
it.
thank you for being here. Also, this has been a wonderful show. Do you want to say anything in closing?
No, for me, I just want to thank you, Joyce, for all that you're doing for the Heart Profit movement, all you're doing to get the word out there, and even more importantly, just who you are as a leader. You really demonstrate and show that having this balance of compassion is a superpower and not a weakness. So thank you very much for that.
Aw, thank you.
Ditto to that. Thank you. Thank you both. All right. I love you guys. We love you. We are here for you. Let us know how we can support your journey into heart-based leadership. And let us know if you have any questions. Comment in our chat if you have any questions. We will see you guys next week for another exciting show on compassionate leadership.